We are live.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Introvert Dating 101 with your hostess, Aleeza Ben Shalom. And I am here with Sarah Kupfer, who is my everything. She's my marketing Jewish. She's my social media guru. She's my program development specialist. She's just fantastic, and I absolutely love working with her, and she is here to help moderate. But tonight we're going to talk all about introvert dating for introverts and for extroverts who are dating introverts, and for all of those that fit in that other in-between category that's like an omnivert, an ambivert, or some other kind of vert.
Are you using the words right now?
No, Google it. It's a real thing. OMNI vert, AMBI vert. Yeah, I know you're Googling it. Okay, you can Google it while I talk.
I'm just going to address this question because someone said, I'm guessing neither of you are introverts. I am a hardcore introvert. I'm an extroverted introvert. And I don't know if this like provides a little bit of insight, but I just had a piece of gum with CBD to relax me to like actually be here and be present. So that's not drugs. But don't give me that look. I hate when people do that. That's not drugs. It's not THC, it's CBD. But I'm an extroverted introvert. So I enjoy meeting people and I enjoy doing these kind of things. But like my recharge, if I go to a party for 2 hours, I need to be alone in my room for 2 days. So I definitely relate to all the introvert stuff.
Okay, and I am a formerly shy extrovert, which I just learned is a new thing. You're going to hear about that. Yeah. And I trained myself to be an extrovert also, but I recharge by being with people. I love people. I love you guys. And I also recharge by not being with people and being alone and like closing my screen and saying goodbye and locking myself in the room and like super happy you could leave me here for 3 days with 2 granola bars and I'll just be totally fine. So I have a little bit of both. Okay, so here we go. We are going to dig in. I've got my notes right down here. And I want to talk about, we have to define our terms, right? Because if we just throw around the terms introvert, extrovert, it's so generic. What do you mean? What do I mean? What do they think? And there's not one like exact definition. So we're going to broadly define what it means to be an introvert, what it means to be an extrovert, and how that looks when you're going through the dating process, because it gets a little bit ugly sometimes. So just saying. Okay, so defining our terms. Let's talk about an extrovert at first, okay? An extrovert can be somebody who's, actually, wait, I'm gonna challenge you. Throw all your definitions of what an extrovert is in the comments. I'm gonna give you like 5 seconds to do that now. Quickly type as fast as you can. What do you think an extrovert is? What do they look like? How does that sound, okay? Talkative, yup, you're spot on. I can't read the rest of that comment because I'm on the phone. I can only read half of it. Fun, extroverts are listed as fun.
Ooh, someone that likes going out and meeting people, one that gets energy from being with people. Ooh, I love that. Someone who talks a lot easily without thinking, energized by being with lots of people, outgoing, naturally comfortable around people. Someone who gets energy from being around people, social, upbeat, someone bubbly and upbeat, happy. So many of the same ones, which is a good thing. Easier to date.
Yeah, they can be.
Being with people, enjoys being around others, in their element with meeting people.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Okay, so I'm totally on board with you, and I might repeat some of these, so we'll just go through it from my notes. So somebody who's outgoing, they might be outspoken, not just outgoing. They are people who enjoy being around people. They are talkative. They are friendly. They are easier to get to know because they share a lot about themselves. They tend to be more open. They tend to be more comfortable sharing whatever's on their mind. They are, hang on, where's the rest of the list? Social butterflies, social networkers, conversationalists. They have a magnetic personality. You're around them and you're like, oh, I just want to hang around you. This is just great. Not everybody, but some of them. They can be a ball of energy. They can be emotionally vocal. So they'll talk about their feelings. They open up, they'll share with you. They tend to be optimists, enthusiastic. They have an amount of enthusiasm, flexibility, and they're often like this open book. They're just happy to share all about themselves. And those are some pretty amazing things. And if you're not an extrovert, you might be sitting there thinking like, oh gosh, Aleeza, Like, I'm none of that. Who's going to date me? How are they going to want to go out with me? I don't compare anything to that. So let me just tell you some of the key challenges that extroverts have and why it's not so fantastic to be an extrovert. So wait, before I do it, you guys do it in the chat box. What are some key challenges that extroverts face? Can you come up with anything? Off the top of my head, I couldn't come up with anything. So I had to really sit with it, but let's see what you guys have.
You must be an extrovert.
All right, what do we got there? Sometimes they give people a headache. Yes.
They can share too much, talk too much. They do all the talking, self-isolation. I guess that was like the challenge of being an extrovert. They may have a hard time being good listeners. They have a hard time coming up with challenges to themselves.
Their energy can wear you down. Yeah.
Extroverts can be overly social.
Awesome.
May not realize others want to share too, but feel intimidated.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to add to that. Sometimes they're attention seeking. They're easily distracted. They're unable to spend time alone. Do you know people like that? They're so extroverted, they can't even sit and have a cup of coffee by themselves. It's like, it drives them crazy. They are allergic to silence. Okay, so if you've got an extreme extrovert dating an extreme introvert, which probably doesn't happen so often, the one's going to want to talk and never hear silence, and the other one's going to want you to stop talking and never open your mouth. It's just a very difficult way to date. Because extroverts tend to be talkative and schmoozy and friendly, they might be, to you, they might feel untrustworthy. Like, oh, you talk a little too much. If you're talking that much to me, I wonder how much you say to somebody else. And that might be a challenge, and that might not be fantastic. So that's some of the positives and the negatives about extroverts. And now we defined our terms, and we talked a little bit about, well, we didn't get deep into the dating thing yet, but I want to talk about introverts, and I want to define our terms. So you ready? What are the key benefits? Oh,
before you start typing, most of you have your chat set to all panelists. I'm going to ask you to change it to all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see what's coming in and what you're thinking, because we don't get to all of them, and I would love for everyone to be able to see them.
Oh, thank you. Good note. So, okay, what are the key benefits? Once you change it to all panelists and attendees, what are the key benefits of being an introvert? If you are an introvert, now is the time to speak up. I mean, type up. Take a moment. Good listeners. Yes, you are. They're quiet. Mm-hmm. Highly aware of their
feelings.
Yep.
They say the right things. They're analytical. Stay home
meaningful
with your
connection.
Sons and daughters. It develops inner self. They're fine with silence. They're good at observing, emotionally in tune generally. They get in trouble less.
It's true.
Comfortable being by themselves, have a few close friends, better able to survive social distancing. That came up a few times.
Actually, I spoke to an introvert recently, and she's like, Aleeza, this, social distancing, she's like, I'm so happy. Now I don't feel guilty about not having to be social. She's like, this is like my dream come true. She's like, I know funny. A lot of people are suffering, she goes, but I'm not.
Every introvert I've spoken to did not have that reaction. And I know I can say for myself, there's a really big difference in choosing self-isolation and in being forced to self-isolate. But
she might be an extreme introvert, but she was super happy on her own.
They like to connect rather than small talk and banter, real independence.
Yep.
Yeah.
They love the quiet. Okay.
Protective shell.
Okay, great. So I'm going to add a few things here. They tend to be self-sufficient. They're super focused. They're easy to please. They're very observant. You guys said that, I think. They are good at studying. They're trustworthy. They're committed to their goals. There's a lot of positives there. And when you're thinking about introverts versus extroverts in dating, and like, oh, it's so much harder to date an introvert because they don't talk as much, they don't this. But they give you a comfort of just being there for you. You know they're going to be there for you. There's something really solid about who they are, and they don't have to shout it loud and make a big scene about it. It's just very comfortable. And so there's a tremendous benefit to dating an introvert. Okay, but now we're going to ask the question, what are the key challenges of being an introvert? Throw your ideas in the chat. You know what, how about if we do this in reverse? As you're throwing your ideas in, I'll throw a few of mine first, and then you get yours second. So one of the key challenges is that they are just exhausted by lots of talking. Even if they like you, they just might not like to hear you open your mouth. Socializing is just exhausting, overwhelming for them. They don't really love this small talk thing. It's very difficult for them. It kind of like makes them cringe. They're like, oh gosh, like that's what we have to talk about? Like a little bit of nothing, really? Like that, I'm gonna finally work up my energy to tolerate listening to somebody, and like for that, it's not really fantastic. What do we have in the chat, Sarah?
We got some good comments. Quiet, guarded, maybe overlooked, have a harder time opening up. There are no introvert politicians. I don't know if that's true or not, but that would be really interesting. Serious, may have a hard time connecting to others, hard to get the social ball rolling. People can underestimate their abilities, personality, and intelligence. Quiet can be perceived as a lack of interest. They can seem unapproachable, hard to read, closed up. American society favors extroverts. Words like outgoing are considered a preferable trait. Pressures on you. It's hard for them to speak up for themselves, harder to get past the surface. They're sometimes looked down upon, distant, take too long to warm up, and be truly authentic.
Yeah.
I can relate to too much of that.
That's a really, really solid list.
Yeah.
Okay, so now what I want to do, now that we're on the same wavelength, we've discussed the definitions of what the terms are, I want to talk a little bit about dating and where people might get tripped up, and then we're going to dig into the questions. So for extroverts, they are particularly frustrated when they don't have an opportunity to really connect and shine. So they're more likely to be on their best when they're at an event, when they're in person, when they're schmoozing, when they're socializing, even when they're just around. And introverts are the reverse. Introverts really enjoy, not really enjoy, they still might rather be alone, but they'd be much more comfortable starting out slow, maybe online, behind the scenes, not just in your face schmoozing and socializing. Online dating is way too slow for extroverts. It's like new already. Like, I just want to meet you. I got to get a feel for you. I got to get a taste for you. I got to see you. I can't just have this over the phone thing. And if it's over the phone, it's like maybe they're OCD texting you and they're like too much schmoozing you. And you're like, man, don't they ever leave me alone? And they just need that socialization, or maybe they are OCD and they're texting you too much. That's a whole nother category. This is not an OCD webinar. But in general, extroverts, they want more talk time. They want more FaceTime, literally FaceTime, not just the FaceTime app. They want more texting. They want more communication. They want more you. And introverts are like, I like you. You're a good person. You're solid. I like you for me, but I don't need to talk to you all the time. I don't need to be with you all the time. I don't need to be schmoozing with you all the time to feel connected to you. I might feel connected to you, but I'm not actually doing anything fantastic to talk to you to build the relationship. I could just feel good right here about it. I'm good on my own, you're on your own, and we're together. That's solid. Like, that's enough for them. What else? Right. And for introverts, silence is joy. It's like music to their ears. And for extroverts, silence is pain. Silence is like the end of the relationship. Do they not like me? What's going on? Why aren't we talking so much? You know, we used to talk a lot more. I mean, they want to cut back talking. Isn't that not a good sign? That must be a sign that it's not going in a good direction. No, it could be a sign that you are dating an introvert. And it could be a sign that it's going in a great direction. She or he is happy, just wants a little less of you, but it doesn't mean they like you any less. They just want to hear you a little bit less. And that's going to be a little bit of a, we'll get to that. That's going to be a hot topic.
It is also comfortable without that need for more.
Exactly. So there's a lot of moving parts here. And then what we didn't fully discuss, which we'll dig into a little bit, is nobody neatly, not nobody, most people don't neatly fit into one box. Okay. So if we have a scale from 1 to 10 of extrovert and a scale from 1 to 10 of introvert, right? My introverted side might be to a 4. My extroverted side might be to an 8. Like it's not even, and it's not out of 10. This one's 5 and that one's 5 and that's even. It doesn't work like that. Each scale is its own independent scale, even though you might think like, but that's in contradiction with the other. No, it's not. We have all different sides to our personality, and they come out at different times. And especially during dating, you start out in the beginning of dates, and all of a sudden, you're not getting anywhere. You 1 date, 2 date, you're like, I like your face, I like the way you look, I like your values, I like what you stand for. But man, like, give me something. Like, there's no oomph to this. There's no momentum to this. I can't get it going. Well, is that because there's nothing here? Or is it because maybe you're dating an introvert and it takes some time to come out? And you're not going to see them really pop and shine until 6 dates, 7 dates, 8 dates, until you really see the true self of who they are and you get on the inside. And they don't open up to everybody, and they don't open up so quickly. So you could have, by the way, an introvert who is open and willing to share, but they're still introverted. And you can have an extrovert who is still shy, who is just like more reserved and not as out there as you normally would expect. So it gets a little bit confusing when we're defining terms, but basically if you're dating somebody and you're struggling with the communication and the connection and something doesn't feel like it's right, it might be because you are a little bit more of one side and they are a little bit more of the other, and your communication styles are very different. And that's not bad. It's just different, which is one of my favorite words in the whole world. Different means not the same. So if it's the same, it's easy. We're similar. We're alike. We match. Sarah and I are different, but we have a similar energy in a certain way. And like there's this connection, right? Something happens when we're on screen and there's like a moment, right? we're a little playful. But if our chemistry doesn't match, it's like, well, does it mean that it's bad? No. It just means that it's different. Do you like it? Can you tolerate it? Are you willing to work with it? Do you want to build on it? Is it worthwhile? Should you invest? I mean, yeah, there's a million questions to ask. That's why I have a job. That's why I do coaching. Each situation is different, but you have to think about it. Is this about us? Is this about introvert, extrovert? Is this about values? Like, what's tripping us up? And sometimes it's this little sneaky introvert, extrovert thing that happens. So with that, we are going to move on to the Q&A portion of the webinar.
I'm going to, someone just put a question in the chat box, which I like, I'm going to ask it, but just a reminder, please put your questions in the Q&A box so that I don't miss them. Can you discuss whether it's true that opposites attract? As an introvert, this idea never made sense to me.
Okay, so yes, opposites tend to attract. And why is that? The reason is because we are seeking balance in our energies. So if I'm more this way and you're more that way, I can feed off of, learn from who you are and your energy. You can learn from mine, and we both bring each other to a balanced place. And there's something really beautiful about somebody who has not everything, but some opposite traits to who you are. There's also something ridiculously challenging about somebody who has opposite traits to who you are, which is it's hard to balance when I'm a night owl and you're a morning person, and we are like two ships passing in the night. We never see each other. That's difficult. Or if I'm an introvert and you're an extrovert, that might be difficult. Now, again, to what degree are you an introvert? To what degree are you an extrovert? How does that work? In general, it is nice to match energies. And what I found with the clients that I work with is when one person wants to talk more, connect more, and feels just lonely and just empty without that connection, and the other person is more introverted, they like their alone time, they're satisfied with the relationship, they don't just need all that schmoozing, it's too much yada 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 talking, that they just can't fully connect, because I can't get what I want, I can't give you what you want, and vice versa. And so they're constantly going back and forth between this, and it's really difficult for them. So it's nice if you're, let's just make this up, if you're an introvert, like really far on the introvert spectrum, you should look for somebody who maybe is introverted but has an extroverted side to them to, a degree. If you're an introvert that's more moderate, middle of the road, you could date an extrovert who is somewhere in the middle and understands an introvert, and you guys can meet in the middle. But I do think it's really too difficult to put somebody who's strongly extroverted with somebody who's strongly introverted, and like your communication styles are totally different. One likes silence and the other one likes schmoozing all the time. When you wake up, when you go to sleep, in the morning, just day at the meal, nothing. You can't get a moment of silence. You go sit down to read your book and they're like, oh, what book are you reading? Is that good? Should I take a look? You want to read it together? How about you read it out loud? And you're like, how about you stop talking?
Go away.
Right. So
don't you have a friend you're supposed to go visit or something?
Right. Right. It's guys' night. It's girls' night. See you later. Bye. Go schmooze with somebody else. I'm done schmoozing. Love you, but I just can't take any more of you. So yes, I do agree with you that when you are too opposite, it is going to be too difficult, and it's much easier to find somebody that's more similar, but not exact. Similar. Let's go for similar, in the same boat.
All right. What are some tips for making a relationship between an extrovert and an introvert thrive?
Ooh, some tips. So in general, what you need to think of is not what do I need, but what do they need? If you're constantly thinking about getting your needs met, you're never going to get them met. You're just not, because you're going to be trying to yank out of them what you want. What I'd rather you do is think, what do they need? So for an introvert, you're thinking, well, they need to schmooze now. Okay, you know what? So I am going to have my alone time the rest of the day, and I'm going to save up my talk schmooze time for them because they need that. And I'm not going to get on the phone with my friend who needs me because I can't handle two people really just going at me today. So I'm going to save up that talk time for that person. And for the extrovert, I would do the opposite. If you know that that person needs some more quiet time and you're like, I just got to talk this out with somebody, don't call them. Call your friend, call your sister, call your mother, call your brother, call anybody but that person and talk to them just a little bit less. It's not that you're not sharing. It's not that you're not revealing. It's not that you're not connected. They're feeling super connected. And if you over connect, you're going to drive them nuts. So think about what they need and how you can meet their needs, and you're much more likely to have a successful relationship.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, I was going to say that, like, it's not like you're holding back or you're not telling them something. And probably you're going to mention it to them anyway, but there's a difference if they're the first person that you tell, in which case you need to get it all out in every detail and from all sides, and he said and she said and but why, and psychoanalyze the whole thing, especially if you're that type of thinker, versus if you already told it to 3 other people, by the time it gets to them, you're still going to share because if it's something that's important to you, you want them to know about it, but it's like the watered down version, which is exactly what they want to hear.
Right. They want like the 30-second to 2-minute version, just like, I just wanted to share this with you, sweetheart. Yeah. As opposed to
they want the elevator pitch, not the whole business plan.
Yeah, they don't want to brain dump. Extroverts don't brain dump on introverts. They're not interested. They do love you, but they're not going to be interested. It's true.
All right. I don't know if you addressed this, so if you did, I apologize. But did you talk about ambiverts?
We threw it in there. We remember in the beginning it was like they're the middle of the road something. So we're not going to fully address them, I think. Okay. I think we're
not.
Well, I mean, we could you'll Google the definition so that we can have the exact definition of what an ambivert is, but it's not an introvert and it's not an extrovert. It's like a mutt. It's like a person
whose personality has a balance of extrovert and introvert features. Basically, they're perfect. I'm kidding.
That's adorable, by the way. That's so cute. So they're the middle of the road people. And if you're an introvert, or if you're an introvert, you might like an ambivert more than an extrovert. And if you're an extrovert, you might tolerate an ambivert more than an introvert, even though you still might want your own extrovert, by your side, but you might be tolerant and happy to have an ambivert with you, for you, whatever I'm supposed to say.
Awesome. So we got a couple comments about people always saying that they want to date extroverts because they're easier to date. And we have a question of, how do I attract an extrovert?
Okay, so everything that we just talked about that you know about extroverts, you've got to match their energy. So they like you to be upbeat. They like you to have personality. They like you to have style. They like, not style, like style in your talk, in your language. They enjoy being playful, engaging. They enjoy schmoozing and connecting. They enjoy talking about nothing, and they enjoy talking about everything, and they just enjoy talking. They enjoy being with you in person. They want your time. They want to just connect with you, and they want to spend time with you, and they ask questions. They're curious about you. They want to know. They want to share. So if you want to attract somebody like that, embrace some of those qualities yourself. And if you're like, but Aleeza, it's not me. So if you want to attract somebody like that, you have to say, it's not me, but I could step it up in this area. So wherever you are on that spectrum, you crank the volume up. So if you're at a 7, make it a 10. If you're at a 4, make it a 6. Just bump up the volume a little bit and bring that side of you out, and you'll start to see that you'll start to draw and attract those people in, because you're going to be easier to connect with.
So just want to clarify, you're not saying like put on a show and be someone you're not. You're just saying
no.
Access that inner part of you, and now's the time to let it shine.
And turn it up. Like, you could do it to your normal level, or you could do it to your best level. Do it to your best level, and then when you hit your best level, find your new best level. Like, keep upping your skills and practicing doing it. If you really want to attract that type of person, you need to become somebody who is attractive to that type of person.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I like this question. Are the extroverted guys more the ones who are likely to try and want to solve your problems when you're talking about something that's bothering you and you just want them to listen? I'm going to let Aleeza answer this, but I just want to say, I just think it's a guy thing. I don't think it's an extrovert thing.
Yes, and I do think it's also an extrovert thing.
Yeah?
I do think that they're right. I do think that the extrovert is much more likely to want, think about it, because an introvert
is less of a listener.
Yeah, they're going to want to,
action oriented.
It's not just that they're action oriented. They want to talk. And what are you going to talk about? You can't talk about listening to them. So you talk about solving the problem. That's part of it, is that's what we're talking about. Or they want to dig in deeper, where like an introvert might just want to share. The extrovert wants to dig in deeper. Even if they're not solving a problem, they just want to like flesh it all out. And you're like, whoa, I shared this much. I'm not looking to talk about it for this much. Like stop, we're good. So I do think it's an extrovert thing. It might tend to be a more male character trait, although there's plenty of women who have a lot of masculine energy, and they might look to problem solve as well. So if you know a woman who's like that, that also might be something that you see come out in them. But yeah, I think she's right, or he.
Cool. All right. When someone doesn't really have any friends, are they an extrovert, or is this a red flag? And how can you tell the difference?
Yes, maybe both, possibly.
So, you are so helpful tonight.
I'm super clear. This is really awesome. So an introvert might have fewer friends or hardly any friends because they just don't have a need for them so much. They're just happy to do their own thing and spend time by themselves. Although introverts do like friends. They usually like close friends, and a few of them. So they might have over their lifetime, those 3 or 5 people that like, they're their people. And like, other than that, the rest of the world doesn't matter. Extroverts might have like their closest 100 best friends, and they can't make a wedding without having a list that's like 7 pages long, because it's just like, how could I not invite them? They'll be insulted. We're best friends. And how about the other 600 people? They're also best, my besties.
It's so funny because we're planning our wedding, and I'm just like, 5. I need 5. I know we're going to have, if we can have 50 people, I need 5 for friends, and I'm good. And then Aleeza, fine, 6. I'm kidding.
I don't count as a friend.
I'm kidding.
So yes, introverts might be more likely to have fewer friends. And yes, having no friends is a red flag. So if you do not have, everybody needs like a my person, best friend, closest person, even if you don't call them your best friend, but like the closest thing to that. And then really there should be like at least 2 to 3 human beings in the world that they can tolerate. If there's people that are just not tolerating other people and don't get close enough to other people, to me, it is a red flag. Why don't you have those relationships? Why aren't you able to develop them? Why aren't you able to tolerate them? Why aren't you interested in having them? It just brings up a lot of concern for me. And how are you going to tolerate having a relationship with me or my family or my friends or our friends? How are we going to develop our own network? Because you don't have that skill or you don't desire that. And therefore, that's a very big concern to me.
Going back to your last question or 2 questions ago, it sounds like you're saying introverts should actively extrovert more to attract an extrovert. What about trying to just attract someone who will appreciate the introvert at their natural state?
Just be you. Just be you, and don't seek out super extroverted people. Look for introverts anywhere on the introvert spectrum.
Wait, no, the question was, it sounds like you're saying that they should try to be more extrovert. Are you saying, and the question is, why not just attract someone at your natural state?
Because the other person said, I want to attract somebody extroverted. Gotcha. So if you want to do that, then you have to do that. If you don't care about attracting somebody extroverted, then you should just be who you are. And the people who are attracted to the you-ness of you are going to value you. Well, that was a lot of yous. Yeah. But basically, you're going to not look for an extrovert. You're going to look for somebody on the introverted scale or the ambivert scale or the in-between or the low extrovert scale is going to be comfortable with you.
Awesome. Thank you. We introverts hate small talk and fluff. And yet, when it comes to dating, it wouldn't be affected to get too deep too fast either. How do we strike that balance when meeting someone in shidduchim? And if someone jumped into more intense topics like religious journeys, family dynamics growing up, therapists, etc., after just a couple of virtual dates, should I just assume that a person who would talk about this kind of stuff on a first or second date has lousy social skills and isn't a match?
Okay, that was a lot of questions in one.
It's just 2. Question number 1, part A is, how do we strike the balance of meeting someone of not like having to do all the fluff and small talk. Introverts hate, but also not jumping too deep too quick.
Right. You need to come up with small talk that you can tolerate. So it has to be topics that you can handle and that you're interested in, that are basic, that are maybe based on hobbies or interests or things that you don't normally like really want to schmooze about, but you're willing to tolerate, as opposed to like, there's a difference between, oh, it's like great weather. Oh yeah, and not so much traffic. I mean, it was so easy to get here, right? And like all that garbage that you're like, oh gosh, and oh, this coffee, oh, it smells so wonderful, and oh, it's my favorite flavor, and you're like, can we please stop, right? As opposed to maybe you have a hobby of, I'm going to tell you all my hobbies, of gardening, and you start talking about all the things that you're growing, and like you don't have to spend hours talking about it, but like you could tolerate it because it's nice small talk. It's at least something that you're engaged in and something that you're interested in, or your latest project that you're working on, or something that you can tolerate that isn't just like, how's the weather? That my advice is to find those topics that you can handle and come up with a list of 2, 3, 5, pulling it out of you. Like if we got 5 topics, you're good. But like 3 topics even that you can have at hand that you're willing to talk about. And yes, like, by the way, you got to slow it down and just tolerate the small talk. I'm so sorry. You can even like, if you feel a connection, you could speed it up and jump into deeper things like on the second date. But the first date, you got to just tolerate the, yeah, I get it. I don't like small talk. I go deep. Anybody, if you like to go deep, it's good to work with me, because like we dig in and we like deal with all the real stuff and all the schmoozy. Like I have some clients who are like, oh, hi, how are you doing? Good. How are you? I'm like, listen, let's get to it. What do you want to talk about? Like, what do you need? I'm here for you. How can I help? I'm like, yeah, good. Okay, good. Okay. I don't have to make small, like, I don't have to be friendly with you to like be close with you. I'm like, nah, knock it off. Like, what do you need?
It's so funny because it just clicked. Like, part of what I love about working with you is like professionally is that like on the odd occasion we'll talk about something random. I'll share a thought, or you'll share a thought or experience, and then I'll be like, okay, tachlis, next, what do we have to do? And there's no transition whatsoever from,
right, and we don't,
I went gown shopping today to when does the next email have to get out for the next webinar? Like, no transition.
Right, because like the small talk is like, I'll tolerate it for like, you know, a few minutes. And then other than that, it's like, woof, next.
Yeah.
Love it.
All right. And then, so the second part of that question is, if someone jumps straight into more intense topics after just a couple virtual dates, should I just assume that someone who would do that has lousy social skills? And someone is following up to that, asking, is it generally a red flag to talk about these things too deep, too fast?
Okay. So could they have lousy social skills? Yes, they could. They could not know generic social schmoozing cues and etiquette. That's possible. It's also possible that they're an extrovert and they just like talking about everything under the sun, and it doesn't matter whether it's light or whether it's heavy. That's also possible. And wait, the last thing you just said from the comment that came in.
Is it considered a red flag if someone just gets too
deep? Okay, so there's something, it's not a very nice term, but it's called verbal diarrhea. And the people that just tell you everything about everything and they literally just let it all out, it's a problem. It is a red flag. Why are you telling me this? Why do you need to tell me this? Why is it appropriate for you to tell me this? Why do I need to hear this? Why is this beneficial to our relationship or to connecting with you? Why is this being said on a first date? Should this even be said on a fifth date? Like, so if you just tend to like open mouth and just let it all flow, put the stopper in. Not really what we're looking for. We are looking for normal, healthy, balanced relationship, balanced connection, a little bit of information. You want to like give them enough that they want to know more, and then you're going to see them next time, right? Like leave the door open for the next time. I just don't want to tell you everything I need to tell you. Now, that all being said, there are these rare, like winning the lottery, rare occasions that happens to some, like rare winning the lottery, very rare, some people that they connect and it's like that moment, like, la, this is my person. We talked for 4 hours on a first date. It would have gone on for 10 hours. I still wouldn't have been sick of them. We talked about how many children we're going to have and where we're going to live. And I can't believe we did that on a first date. Oh my gosh, I never do that on a first date. Is that a red flag? And every once in a while, lottery winners, they do get married and it actually did work out and it wasn't a problem for them. And is that normal? No. Is that recommended? No. Does it happen? Yes. Does that confuse you? Yes. That's the story.
All right. Don't extroverts also have verbal diarrhea when they chatter nonstop about things that don't matter? What makes that more socially appropriate?
It is not more socially appropriate. It's just their style. Like you all have those friends or those people that you don't want to be friends with that they just don't stop talking, and they'll tell you about the new shoes that they bought, and they'll tell you about the new job that they got, and they'll tell you about what they bought in the grocery store in aisle 2 on the bottom shelf next to the price tag that had the little marking that said that it was on, and like you're like 25 too many details down the road to be like, you're like, you lost me, you know? Like, I don't even know.
What? Who's there?
I'll tell you what happens. It kind of goes like this. You know, you're getting on the phone with them. You get on the phone with them and you're like, what can I do? And you fold your laundry, you clean up your room, you start cooking dinner, and you're really not listening. You're really mostly tuned out because there's no value to the information that they're sharing. So when people are sharing information, my question is, what's the purpose? Why are you sharing? Is this building a connection? Is this what the other person needs? Is this what you need? Is it too much for this relationship? And now I forget the question that you asked and if I even answered it.
No, you didn't, but that's okay.
Go ahead, ask it.
A really good like comment about verbal diarrhea right now. Like you did not answer the question. I'm kidding.
Good.
The question before was about if someone would talk about those, go too deep too fast on a first or second date. Yeah. You know, is that not socially appropriate? And you made a comment about verbal diarrhea. So the follow-up was, but extroverts also, or people also have that when it comes to non-deep things. I think it's more a matter of the timing than it is about the verbal diarrhea, quote unquote, right? Going too deep too fast.
It's the timing, it's the person, it's the moment. Like it has to be mutual. The problem is too deep too fast. When I'm in deep and you're not, that's a problem. When I'm in deep and you're in the deep end with me, we're fine because we're at the same place at the same time. So if you're saying, but Aleeza, how do I know if they're in the deep end with me? Well, if you're asking that question, then you don't know. They might be there, but you don't know. If you don't know, don't go there. Only go there when you know, and that way you won't get yourself into trouble.
Awesome. I like it. You know, I always have a favorite question on every webinar, so this is my favorite one tonight.
You say everyone is your favorite.
No, I
That's
didn't.
a good one.
Aleeza,
go ahead.
how's the weather in Bala Cynwyd? That was good, right?
Thank you, Mr. or Mrs. Extrovert, for the humor. It sounds like one of my little playful oh, hello, it was you. But it sounds like one of my playful clients. They always like, we get into things and then they're snarky. That's so cute.
Yeah. All right. Should the introvert mention or bring up that they are an introvert at the beginning of a relationship, kind of to give the other person a heads up, just so they give her a chance, or they give them a chance?
Right. It's so interesting. So I like when people own their stuff and you're comfortable with who you are and you like who you are. So if you're like, I want to tell you more and I want to connect, and some people have said, I have an introverted side. Don't say I'm an introvert. I have an introverted side to me. You've got an extroverted side too. It's just, really small, but I have an introverted side, and it takes me a little time to warm up, but I want you to know I'm having a nice time. Like, you got to tell them something that clues them in that you're happy to be there with them, because your face might look like this and your words might not come out so fast, and you might be like, yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. And inside you're like, oh, yay. And like outside you're just like, I had a client once, and he was very neutral, parv, middle of the road with his facial, verbal, everything expressions. And by the end of our first call, I was like, this probably, like, in my head, I'm like, this isn't going to work. Like, he's just not into this. It's okay. Like, I'm not for everybody. So I sent him a follow-up email just saying, like, it was so nice to talk to you. And, I know if I'm not the right person for you, it's totally fine, whatever. I really insulted him. In his brain, he was so happy to talk to me. And I was like, now we know what to fix. I was like, if I couldn't catch that you wanted to work with me, right, and have a working relationship together, and I couldn't catch that, how's your date catching that you have any interest in her? And he was like, oh. And I was like, yeah, call me. That's what we're going to work on next time. And he worked on himself so hard. He went to speaking things where he put himself on stage and put himself in the most uncomfortable thing, like Toastmasters groups and different whatever. He put himself out there to try to shift that, because he was not giving enough feedback that he had any interest.
Cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Nice. What are some good ways to break awkward silence?
Talk. Okay, so first of all, no. Awkward silences happen. I would expect them to happen multiple times throughout a dating experience when you're with somebody. So the first thing is get comfortable with the uncomfortable. I like what James said. He says, put on a smile. A smile does help, or even a little like giggle in an uncomfortable silence. It's totally fine. You can talk about the fact that it's an uncomfortable silence. You can be like, you know what? It's so nice to just sit here, even though I don't even know what I want to ask you, and I don't know what I want to say, but I'm just having a nice time. And then you just transition from, it's an awkward silence to, no, it's a silence and it's okay because I'm with you, and that's good, and that's okay for me. I'm okay if you want to just have a few questions in mind, like you just have random things that you start to talk about, or don't just talk about the weather. If it's an awkward silence, I'd rather you wait it out. But you can just talk about the fact that sometimes there's no conversation, and that's also okay. And then it just leads into a conversation. But if you're introverted, you do have to work yourself up to just say something, even though your mind is like, nothing. I have nothing. I have nothing to say. Nothing's coming to my mind. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to get this going. you do need to get it going with questions, with curiosity. And if you're an extrovert and you don't mind to kind of schlep them along and ask more questions, help them out, ask questions. I've had a lot of clients who are introverted tell me, Aleeza, just you ask me the questions, I'll answer. I just can't get it going. Can you start the engine? You get the momentum going. And my extroverts, I have to tell them, like, do me a favor, like, just for a minute, let me ask the question. I'm going to take the lead here. So the extroverts, you have to know that you have to quiet yourselves down to allow an introvert to interject something. Otherwise, if they don't have an opportunity to speak up, they can't interject and say anything because you just filled the verbal space. So you have to take verbal cues. And I was once with somebody who was extroverted, and I like kept trying to say something. And somebody else was there and they were watching, and this other person was talking and talking. I was like, oh yeah. Like I kept not being able to say. And the other person's looking at me and they're like, do they not catch? And then the other one's talking and talking. And I was like, you know what? It's not worth it. I'm just not going to speak up. Like, it's
I'm
okay.
just going to say, those are the funniest things to watch. I've seen that before too, where like someone's trying to interject or have their say, and it's like no recognition of the fact that the person they're talking to is trying to say something.
Right. You want a conversation going on. So if there's a silence, silence is okay. You know, silence is golden. Silence is happy for introverts, but on a date, it's awkward. So get the conversation going slowly. You pick the topic. Try not to make it about the weather.
Right. So you mentioned before that when you're communicating with someone, thinking, is this value to the conversation is a good thing to think about. It's difficult to match conversation styles at all times when thought process and extrovert, introvert are dating. Mm-hmm. Is that true?
Oh, is that a question?
I think the question, yes. I think the question was, it's difficult, so what do we do? I think.
It is difficult, and you have to get in sync with each other. There has to be this verbal balance of how much I'm talking and how much you're talking and how much I'm, giving to this conversation and how much you're giving to this conversation. Sometimes it's too difficult because we're just too far apart and it won't work. And other times it's like a dance. Like you each have to do your part. You cannot both be the leader, and you cannot always be the leader. You have to trade, and you have to let somebody else be the leader and guide you through the process. Because if you're always leading, the other person doesn't have an opportunity to speak up. Again, I don't know if I answered the question. Sometimes I hear the question and
I'm like,
but it wasn't really a question. It was a weird.
But I was also gonna. It wasn't weird. Let me clarify what Aleeza's trying to say. It wasn't weird. It just wasn't, the question wasn't super clear.
No, I meant you didn't say the question clearly. They wrote it clearly. How's that?
100% correct, Aleeza. Good. But I was going to say something to that, but now I'm wondering if it's about adding value to the conversation. It's totally not. I was going to say something about the second point about it being hard to think like the other person, especially if your thought processes are so different. So I mean,
it's hard
point, but I think, like, I know for myself, I think, and Aleeza, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it took me a solid 2 to 3 months of dating my now fiance to even get to the point where I was able to start differentiating between my thought process and how I think and how he thinks. And so instead of projecting all of my thoughts onto him, I learned to start understanding the way he thinks and to be able to look at things from his perspective. So that's not directly related here, but I think it's something that we could apply to other situations. Everyone thinks differently, but introverts and extroverts, when we say something or when we don't say something, it's not an indication of anything. If I'm having a conversation with someone and I don't say something, it doesn't mean I hate them, and it doesn't mean I'm not listening or I have nothing to say. I'm listening and I'm waiting. And when they show a sign that they're ready to hear what I have to say, then I'll chime in. And if I feel like I have no value to add, then I won't. And whereas an extrovert will have a different experience with that. So
Okay, also, just to throw this into the mix, which is a little bit different, you kept saying about how he thinks, and we kept talking not about how he thinks, but
how he feels.
thank you, and you still said it again. She's like, I don't know what he's thinking, and I'm like, he's not. She's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, he's not thinking about this. He feels connected to you because he's a feeler. So he feels connected to you. He's not thinking anything specifically. Like it's not how he runs around just, I mean, everybody thinks, but like he doesn't process that way. He's processing here. And I think when you're talking about introverts and extroverts, a lot of extroverts do process very much with their feelings, and they just, because that's why they want to talk to you, because they want to feel you. They want to be there in that moment. And introverts connect through their thinking. So like, I don't even have to be with you to be connected. Just in my brain, I decided I really like you, and boom, man, we are like this. We're two peas in a pod. And like my thinking just bound us together. And for them, I need to be with you because I need to feel you. And I think that's something that's different. So yeah, I would just throw that out there.
It's a good thing. The fact that I still said what he's thinking just shows how often I don't talk about it. I don't even talk about this anymore because it's not, I got it. It's not a topic of conversation.
And when you do talk about it, you still go back to your old ways, which is fine because I know what you mean.
Yeah. Okay, so I was noticing a lot of the questions. I was looking at the questions before the webinar and even things that are coming in now. I feel like a lot of people confuse or kind of, what's the word? I don't know what the word is, but use the term introvert instead of shy.
Blend. They blend the two together like it's one.
Yeah. So can you just clarify what's the difference between shy and an introvert? Are all introverts shy, or are all shy people introverts? Like, let's just clean up all of that stuff for a little bit.
Okay, give me a minute because I wrote this down.
Great.
Okay, an introvert enjoys alone time. They get emotionally drained after spending a lot of time with other people. A shy person doesn't necessarily want to be alone, but might be a little bit more afraid or intimidated when they're interacting with other people. Okay, you with me? So a shy person, it's not all about being alone. It's just like, I don't know how to speak up or when or what, or I get like, I just get all tongue tied when I'm trying to connect with somebody, which I relate to that much more as opposed to an introvert who just really enjoys that alone time. A shy person might just have a hard time interacting. An extrovert might not be able to tell the difference between somebody who's shy or introverted. And an introvert might confuse themselves whether I'm shy or introverted, or a shy introvert, or any combination of the two, but they are not the same thing. They're two.
Can I shake my head any harder?
No, it's gonna fall off. But a shy person has a hard time speaking up. Introverts, by the way, don't always have a hard time speaking up. Introverts sometimes have no problem talking. It's just, I'd rather not talk to you. But I could talk, but I just don't feel like it. You're not worth my time, or I'm totally not interested in connecting with anybody. It's not you. Don't take it personally. I don't want to talk to anybody. I need my alone time. I like my alone time. It makes me happy.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Whew. All right.
Wait. By the way, are we having fun? So here's my question, actually. Is this too much energy? Like, is there anybody here who's introverted and is like, wow, Aleeza, Sarah, like, woo, too much energy for me. This is overwhelming. Because I know introverts maybe don't want to talk all about this topic. Like, I'm kind of curious if we have introverts, extroverts, people in the middle. Like, is this too much, or is this, you know, like, can the introverts handle this? That's my curious question. You can if you're too shy to do it, then you don't have to say it. But I'm just curious to know.
While we wait for those answers to come in, I'm going to ask this question because I think it's a great follow-up question to what we were just talking about.
Okay.
And someone said, I often get questions about my work very early in the conversation, which is clearly listed on my dating profile. It's pretty standard professional work. However, I interpret this as trying to find out how much money I have or make. When I get those questions, I tend to shut down and end the conversation. Am I wrong for doing that? Are there ways to clarify the other person's intent? and I'm going to let you answer it, but I'm just going to say, I feel like this is such a good example of people assuming and projecting their thought process onto someone else, because I have never once asked someone about what they do for the, like, with the objective of trying to know how much they make, like, ever. It's just a really good conversation piece, to be honest.
Right. It's funny because when you were asking the question and you threw in the piece about the money, I was like, what?
Right.
You asked them about the job because of the money. Right. Like because basically if they wrote on their, dating profile what they do, so you know what they do. So if you had any money things and you were Googling it, you would have done that before. You don't actually need to have a conversation about it. So I think that that's totally related to, like, hey, what do you do? What do you like about what you do? How did you get into doing that? And that's so interesting. How long have you been doing that? Totally a conversation piece. And everybody talks about work. If you want to know how much somebody makes, Israelis are a good example of this. They'll be like this. They'll be like, oh, what do you do? And they're like, I'm a doctor. And like, oh, how much you make? 1,000, 150. They just, like, it's the second question out of their mouth. What do you do? How much you make? So, like, the people that want to know, they usually ask. It's not like, what do you do? And about, like, getting curious about your work and having fun with you. Like, it's not like that. And by the way, I don't mean to insult anybody who's Israeli on here. It's just Israelis are straightforward. They're tachlis. I love them. They say it like it is. You do not have to guess what is in their brain. They will just tell you. It's such a pleasure to talk to them because there's no games. There's no shtus. There's no, like, I don't know what you're saying. They're going to tell you everything that they think. It comes out. They're clear. Not everybody. This is a generalization, people. Don't get all on me. But they warm my heart. I love them because they're just so straightforward and they're so real. I like people who are real. I'm not like that. I don't talk like that because I wasn't raised like that. It's, like, overwhelming to me to do that.
I actually have a question for you. How much do you make?
Such a good question.
And this is totally not about introverts, but one of my favorite questions, and actually really, I think I've asked this with probably every guy I've dated, and it's always interesting to hear the response is, do you enjoy doing what you do? And most guys are like, it's okay. And I've asked this to women as well. It pays the bills. I'm like, no, I didn't ask if it pays the bills. I asked if you enjoy doing it. And it totally opens up a whole different conversation. And usually the follow-up, if the answer is not necessarily, the follow-up question is, if money weren't an issue, what would you want to do for work? And I always find that so, like, it's a good conversation piece that's not like, so how many hours do you work? How many emails a day do you, send out?
Right. Those are awesome questions. And it's a great, she's like,
yo, can I be a dating coach now?
That's why I got married. Sure, if you want, you can take my course. But it's really a great way to get the conversation going. It helps you to connect with somebody, and you get to learn about not just who they are and what they are doing, but who they aspire to be, what drives them, what they're passionate about, what they're excited about. It gets you to that deeper level. So I think it's a fantastic question.
Thank you very much. Someone wants to know, how can I politely unattract an extrovert?
Oh, I like that question. Just don't talk to them.
Aleeza, here's the thing. Hold on. Here's
so boring. Just sit here and listen.
I'm going to be very I'm going to make a stereotype here, but not saying anything doesn't unattract extroverts.
It's true. No, it's true.
As long as you're listening, they're going to keep going.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that they're going to come back for more. Like, if you're not a willing, engaged partner, they like people who also like people to connect. They want, I'm giving, but there's no, like, woo, back and forth. It's not entertaining. So maybe I'll still go out with you 2 or 3 times because I'm enjoying listening to myself talk, but I'm not going to marry you, and I'm not going to make it a long-lived relationship. Everything that we talked about that an extrovert likes and is: social, talking, large groups, connected, small talk. Don't do those things and you won't attract them.
Awesome. Question. How should I, this is coming from a woman, how should I ask, I'm an introvert, how should I ask someone for a virtual date with somebody that if they were set up, someone they were set up with, if they were set up, I don't know why you're asking for a date, because then you were set up. So
you have to ask the question.
The question is, how should the girl who's an introvert ask for a virtual date with somebody they were set up with, or how to ask if they are interested in getting to know each other better? Some background.
So there's,
okay.
Okay, so there's a lot of these group chats going on, whether it's Zoom, breakout rooms and stuff, and everybody's schmoozing, and there's like singles and round robins, and there's 60 people, and everybody's meeting everybody, and all of a sudden I'm an introvert and I like this guy, and I want to, you know, get into one of those private chat rooms with him, but I'm an introvert and I'm a woman and I don't want to ask, and what do I do? Are we good? Is that the question? So if you've got an organizer who's running the group, then you can speak to them and you say like, hey, this is, you know, behind the scenes, this is who I like. Can you help set it up? If you don't have the benefit of a moderator or somebody who you can go to, and it's more singles doing a group thing for singles, I would try to just get in those rooms that person is in. Maybe have a friend drop a hint or a clue, or to be honest, for an introvert, this is the easiest time to actually put yourself out there. Just message them and just say, hey, like, you want to go into a breakout room? I'd love to get to know you better. Put yourself out there. You've got nothing to lose because you've got nothing. Until you actually have something, you're not actually missing out on something. It might make you super uncomfortable, but it's through texting, through online. You don't have to do it face to face. It's totally behind the scenes. Right now, by the way, is like an introvert's dating heaven. Not really, because introverts, just dating's hard for them anyway, but it's amazing. There's so many behind the scenes things going on. And even though I see you virtually through the computer and the phone and whatever, it's still not in person. I could still sit in my room where it makes me really happy with my pajama bottoms that you can't see because you only see from here up. And I can be in my comfy space with my favorite drink next to me. And I can be as comfortable as I could be in an uncomfortable situation, as opposed to getting all dressed up and going to an event at a location and I don't have my wingman and I don't know what to do. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like so difficult for introverts to do that. So by the way, introvert dating right now, tip, like, this should be introvert heaven. You should be dating as much as you can right now, finding groups, finding people online, social media, whatever. Get yourself connected. If you're an introvert, you're probably not really connected, so you need to be socially connected before you find those dating groups. And if you need help with that, I don't know, maybe we can put you in touch with some of our favorite matchmakers and friends.
All right. By the way, Stan says that the unattracting an extrovert wasn't a serious question, but you could always say you have COVID-19 and that should do it.
Thanks, Stan. Good to see you. We're good to hear you.
All right, Aleeza, this question is coming from a Sharkhin, and I think that maybe we should put the question out to the crowd and have them answer in the chat box.
Okay, so just keep everything generic, by the way.
Totally said that in the notes. That was not my idea.
You're funny tonight.
I said come. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, matchmakers. What's the question about matchmakers?
All right, the question is, from a Sharkhin, how can I help introverted first-time daters get past his or her anxiety?
Awesome. Okay, so a matchmaker that we know might be on this webinar and listening, and they want to know about how they could help introverts get past this uncomfortable moment.
And just to clarify, obviously we're not talking about like real anxiety where, you know, that they're working on with their therapist. We're talking about natural, normal daters' anxiety. And someone's clarifying that introvert does not mean anxiety. No, it doesn't. But many first-time daters who are also introverts are a little bit anxious about the process. So that's what we're talking about here.
Fantastic.
Let's hear from you. If you are an introvert, what would you suggest to a matchmaker that they pass on to their clients?
Good. So you have to have some ideas. And I know some of you are introverted, so think. I'm sure you're trying to help yourselves out, but how could a matchmaker give advice to somebody for the first time? Okay, so do I have to give my advice? If I give my advice, then we're not going to hear from them. I want to hear from them.
Okay, everyone just pause. Apparently, if you're just quiet and no one says anything, someone will feel obligated to say something. That's like business 101.
Maybe what we'll do
Why
is give
the
them time
advice
to answer.
introvert specific? Because this is a webinar about, wait for it, introverts. So just to clarify, everything we're talking about here is not, we're not like pro introverts at all. I mean, we're pro introverts, we're also pro extroverts. This is not like which is better and which one has more dating struggles. No, but this happens to be a webinar to help introverts date and to help others date introverts, specifically with that like little bit of being a little bit quieter and a little more closed off, which is very normal and natural for a lot of introverts. Not everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's give people time to answer, and then do you want to ask another question and we'll come back to the answers in a minute?
Let's just read yeah, we got a couple of answers coming in.
You got answers? Okay.
Yeah. Try to meet people one-on-one rather than in big groups. Set a time limit for the first encounter if there's a good way to do that. I actually really, I'm a fan of that. I really am. And there's so many
a shorter time limit, not just set a time limit, but make it a shorter time so that they don't have to be there for a very long time.
Yeah. This is coming from an extrovert, but they say they should talk about their passions, things that excite them, and then they will be more comfortable and less anxious. I really like the idea, and I feel like it's super basic and on the one hand, like oversaid, but on the other hand, not really valued. Really coming up with a list of things that you feel comfortable talking about makes the whole process so much easier. Both, I don't know, there's kind of this expectation that the guy's gonna like lead the conversation, which is really draining on him if you know the girl or the woman's always putting it on him. And also it can be a little bit like, I don't know what he's gonna ask me next, you know? And so kind of sharing that leading of the conversation, but coming up with ideas of things that you are comfortable talking about. I like that. What else have we got? Introverts can make airplane talk for a first date. What's airplane talk?
You know, you get on an airplane.
No, I do not. I'm an introvert. I do not do airplane talk. No.
Seriously?
No.
Okay. Sorry, it goes like this. I get on the airplane, I sit down, you know, everybody's like, don't sit next to me, you know, somebody sits down next to you and you're like, hi. The introverts don't even say hi, right? But an extrovert tries to get it going. They're like, how are you doing? Good. Oh yeah. Where are you from here? Are you from there where we're going? Like what's going on and what's the story? And oh yeah, what about
out my phone?
Right.
I'm on it. Right. Sorry. I'm playing in a very important game right now.
Right. And the introverts like put in the earplugs or the earbuds and they're like, what? I'm sorry, did you say something? What? Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm good. Like, they're done. They're like, bug off. But for introverts, I think also for a matchmaker, you could role play with an introvert. Have a first date with them. Sit and have coffee. Make annoying small talk and get them to open up. Help them to lead and ask a leading question and get the conversation going. I think that would be a great fit.
I'm going to add, they probably won't want to do that because that's really, really uncomfortable. And you're going to without forcing, you're going to very nicely get them to the point where they do, because it's going to be so much easier once they get to the date. I didn't do that for dating, but I definitely did it for sales calls. And I hated the role play thing because it's so uncomfortable. But then by the time it actually came to the sales call, I was like, did this before. I got this. So I like that.
Yeah.
And sounds like the shotgun is confusing introverts with anxiety or shyness again.
Right, because we said introverts just don't necessarily want to speak up and talk and connect as much. But listen, if you want to live with another human being and you want to get married, and I know you're introverted, you still got to work on it and you got to come out a little bit more, because what your partner loves is you. And what they want is you, and they want to have time with you, and they want to get to know you. And they can't do that if you're not willing to spend time with them. So you have to learn to slowly build up your tolerance to being with somebody and connecting with somebody and giving of yourself and of your time, even if it's draining to you, because you want to have a partner in life. So we got to do it.
And then we also have, there are some good card games like Perfect Matches, stuff like that, that could be played on a date. And that kind of takes the pressure off of no one. I know people who are like, no, it's so cheesy. But honestly, I like those questions. I like those games.
They don't usually do those games on a first date, though. Like, I'm just going to tell you.
Right. That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah. In the dating world, that's like date 3, date 4, dates, something later on.
All right, I got a good question here. As an extrovert female, after date 1 or 2, how can I make the introvert feel more comfortable to open up and express themselves or be more vulnerable?
So ask a good question and then pause. It is like sales where the first person to speak loses. So if you're the extrovert and you ask a question and you see the introvert doesn't answer you, they're not answering you because they might be uncomfortable, right? They are thinking and they are processing and they are maybe answering the question in their head before the question comes out of their mouth. And that takes sometimes 30 seconds to a minute, which is like awkward silence. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And then you realize, no, this isn't awkward. They're just processing. They're not having an awkward moment right now. They're in their brain. And as soon as they open their mouth, you're going to hear what they have to say. They're in another world temporarily. You think they're not with you, but as long as you understand that they actually are with you, just wait to hear what they have to say. And then when they say something, you can connect, compliment, ask a follow-up question, and then you're going to have to wait again. And guess what? For the rest of your life, if you marry somebody, whatever speed they process at and however quickly they're able to answer a question, that's their speed. So they might have a slow processing speed or a medium one or like a minus, processing speed. That's the speed that they move at. It's not good. It's not bad. It's different than your processing speed. And it's maybe annoying if you don't learn how to navigate it. So if you're comfortable with it, great, no problem. If you're uncomfortable with it, if you can't get comfortable with the pause and the wait for them to answer and you're bored because like already you've got 6 new questions in your head and they didn't even answer number 1, you might have a problem. So don't rush them. Patience. This is what I really want to tell extroverts. Patience, 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 patience. Just slow down. Move at half speed. Move at half talk if you're finding the whole process frustrating, and do it intentionally and be like, well, let me just try this new speed on. Because by the way, a new speed is not bad. It's just different. It's different from you and it's okay. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you'll hate it, but you won't know until you actually make an effort and you experience it. That's the story.
And I just want to add, like, it's not actually like a sales call where the person who's making the sale is you taking advantage of uncomfortable time to encourage the other person to talk. I think it's a lot more like Aleeza said, that we're just thinking. And I can speak for myself, but I would say that it might feel uncomfortable to you when you're the person who's sitting and waiting because it feels like you're putting pressure on them to say something. But very often we are just thinking, and you giving us that space is actually really comforting because it's like there's no pressure for me to have an answer on the spot. It's like, oh, he's cool just letting me put my thoughts together and then, sharing what I have to share.
Right. And that attracts them because then they can be who they are with you and that you get them and that you move at their speed. And when you realize, wait a minute, this is their speed. This isn't bad. It's just different. I can handle it because I know what's happening. What's really uncomfortable is when you don't speak and I'm like, do you like me? Don't you like me? Why aren't you talking? Are you bored? Are you irritated? Do you want to go home? Do you have a stomach ache? Like, what's wrong with you? Say something. Right. And meantime, they're like, wait, I did like you until 30 seconds ago. You just exploded on me. Like, wait a minute, let me just answer your first question. No, I'm fine. My stomach's fine. I'm okay. No, I was thinking about it. And thinking takes time. I work with a lot of clients over the phone. So we don't, and now with, this whole new scenario, I do more with video because people are like, oh, we're used to video. We like that better than the phone. So when I'm on the phone, I usually tell my clients, when they ask a question and I don't immediately answer them, they used to say, are you there? And now I tell them when they ask a question, I know I'm going to be thinking about it. I said, hold on. I just want to tell you, this is the sound of thinking. You are going to hear nothing. I like the question. I'm just thinking. I just want to give you an answer, but we didn't get cut off. Hang on. They're like, oh, okay. Now, when we're doing it face to face, if Sarah asks me a question and I don't know the answer, I'm like, you could see my eyes. I'm looking up. I'm thinking. That's my processing going on. Oh, that's another trigger, by the way. You got to Google this. look and read all about the eyes and thinking. So when people look up and to the right, it means one thing. If they look up and to the left, it means another thing. There's all these different things that the eyes mean. And if you're actually in person or on video with somebody and you're not sure what's going on, if they have a blank stare like this, you might have a problem. But if they're like this, they're not in space, they're in their brain. They are thinking. So Google it. It's actually, I love it. I have a book on this. I have a whole bunch of things. It's really awesome. It's actually a book by like a guy who does like, he's not a magician. He's one of those, one of those guys that does all those tricks, one of those things, but it's not magician. It's a different fancy word. And he talks about like how he quote reads people's minds. He doesn't, he reads their eyes. Oh, illusionist. Yes. Thank you.
Do you have the name of the book? Someone wants to know.
I have to run down to my shelf and get it. What is his name? Oh, he was good. He was doing stuff with like FBI and cops and like all sorts of cool stuff.
Can you just say I'll put it in the email?
Yeah. Okay, fine. Yeah. Remind me to do that. I'll put it in the email.
1 second. Let me just make a note for myself.
Yeah.
Book. All right, and then this question is coming up a few times from extroverts who are dating introverts. And the question is how, a combination of questions, and then I'll give you 2 minutes to answer. How do you get an introvert comfortable with sharing more? How many dates is normal for you to wait to open up? How do you tell if someone needs more time or just isn't interested? And at what point?
I'm never going to remember all of these, so pause, please. I need one at a time.
Yes.
So first question is, how do we tell if they're, no, before how do we tell if they're interested? What's the first one? Come on, you can't throw 3 on me.
It's like a 5-part question from an extrovert.
One.
Okay. How many dates is it normal to wait for them to open up?
Okay. Pause. I'll give you a range, somewhere between 3 to 10. I know 10, you're going to be like, dude, I'm out of here. But it depends. I've seen people open up within a month, and I've seen some people take 3 months, 4 months, 5. I mean, like some people, it takes a lot to crack them. What's in there is so deep and so beautiful and the sweetest of the sweet, but it's very hard for them to pull themselves out and to be there and to be really present with you.
I just want to clarify, is that like across the board, or is that depending on how long they typically date? Like someone who dates a year might take a few months to open up. Someone who dates 2 months might take a few weeks to open up. Is that like?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So, it just takes some time. They move at a different speed. So it's like this. We're on the highway, you and I'm in this car, you're in that car. You're an introvert, I'm not. And we are going on the highway, and we're not in the same car, but we're going to the same destination. And I'm going 75 and you're going 45. We are going to get there, and that person will eventually catch up to me, but they will not arrive at the same time, and they will be lagging behind the entire time. And the only time that we will be together is when we finally get to that destination point where we hit that moment of connection, and it takes time. So there's a fabulous book. Oh wait, I'm sorry. There's a fabulous book for this topic. It is called Slowing Down to the Speed of Life by Richard Carlson. It is going to make your brain hurt if you are a fast mover and an extrovert, and it is going to be comforting to an introvert, and to anybody in between, it's going to be fascinating. So fascinating. And I have to tell you, that book really changed the way that I process, the way that I look at things, the way that I handle things, and it helped me tremendously. It's a short little, 100-something page book, paperback. You could probably buy it used for $4 on Amazon or something. It's fabulous, and it just realigns your brain to the speed of life and dating. So you really have to slow yourself down to the speed of dating, or slow yourself down to the speed of your introvert, because hold on. Wait 1 minute, 30 seconds. I forgot to put on my thing. Stop it. Carly, put in the chat. Yeah, thank you. Wait, where's my camera? Oh, I popped off. It cannot start your video because the host has disabled it.
Hey, hold on.
Uh,
Keep talking though.
so I don't know what I was talking about, but slowing down to the speed of dating and life, it is really you can only move as fast as the slowest person in the relationship. And slow is not bad. It's just different, my new favorite word, different than the speed that you might be going. And it might be a good speed for you. It might actually be a comfortable speed for you.
Aleeza, I forget.
Okay, so hold on, I'm claiming host.
Okay. Great.
Okay,
Awesome.
I'm back. Wait, I want to throw host back to you though.
Sure.
Okay. I don't know how to throw it back to you.
I don't know, but why?
Go ahead.
We have 4 more minutes, so I want to get a few more in here. And I'm totally blanking because, oh yeah, how do you know when someone just needs more time versus when they're not interested?
Okay, if they keep saying yes to going out with you, they need more time. If they say, bye, no thank you, they're not interested. If they keep saying yes, it doesn't mean they're interested. It just means that they're not willing to walk away from it. We don't know how interested they are, and we won't know how interested they are until we keep going out with them, until we build the relationship. But basically, if they say yes to another date and you say yes to another date, there's a moment there. There's something that's actually happening.
Awesome. I like it. Do you feel that the amount of time it takes to open up is generally a big indicator of whether this will work, especially comparatively? As in, if you've dated people you've immediately opened up to, and then you don't feel as comfortable as quickly with someone else, is that a problem?
Yes and no. Yes, if you know that feeling of connecting with somebody and it just works, and the people it works with, it just works with, and the people that it doesn't work with, it just doesn't work. You might be one of those people that intuits, they understand, they feel it, they know it, and you can base your judgments and not wait as long to see if it develops. If you are not somebody who's very good at getting a feel for it and you don't generally feel it, then I would tell you to stick it out longer. But if you know the feeling of like, this works, this is good, then I think you could trust that and know that anything other than that solid, good feeling is probably not going to be right for you. When in doubt, go out. If you're middle of the road, err on the side of giving it a try, but don't force yourself if you're like, but I don't really want to.
Okay. What if they always say, I'll open up on my own time, but they are interested? Is that a guy thing or more of an introvert thing?
Specifically, we're asking about men. No, I think that's an introvert thing, because I know men that are perfectly happy and able to schmooze and talk and open up and connect. So I don't just think that's a guy thing. I do think it's an introvert thing. And if their own time is so long and you are bored and this is just not working for you, it's just not going to work. So like, yeah, take all the time you need, but I might not be here when you decide to open up. So it's a little bit on both sides. You know, the extrovert has to get comfortable and slow down, and the introvert's got to speed up a little bit to entice the other person to stick around.
Awesome. We have a question about how an extrovert should flirt with an introvert versus an introvert flirting with an extrovert. I think we talked about this on last week's The Art of Virtual Flirting, right?
Probably.
Yeah. So if you didn't, just for the sake of time, that felt really cool to say. Just go back to last week's webinar. The webinar is available for replay, and you'll get a ton of great content in there. I know I asked you this, but I don't remember if you answered it. Did you answer how you can tell if a person's shy or if they're an introvert?
Yeah, we talked about the difference between shy and introvert. Yep. We already defined that.
No, I know we defined it, but did we talk about how as a dater?
Oh, how you can check it out? And
I guess the question is it even important for me to know?
Well, if you're okay that somebody's shy, but you don't actually want an introvert, yeah, it would be important for you to know, right? Like I'm okay if you're shy and it'll just take you some time to come out, but you're not really introverted. But if you're really introverted, then, and I don't want an introvert because I don't want somebody who wants all that alone time, then yeah, it would be good for me to know. So how can you tell? You probably, my short answer is you're going to just need more time. And then you're going to need to look at the definitions. Like, do they have, lots of friends? Do they have very few friends? Do they enjoy so much time alone? Do they prefer not to talk so much, or is it just, you know, like it's a little bit harder to get them to open up? And you just kind of have to go through that. I don't think on one foot I could give you like a really solid answer. I think it's more complex than that. And it's just better if you experience them and give them a little bit more time, and then ask them and be like, just curious. Are you like more shy? Are you more introverted? Are you a little bit of both? And just straight up ask them. Maybe they know.
Yeah, I like
but
that.
define your terms. What does shy mean? What does introverted mean? Make sure that when you use the word shy and introvert, they're not interchanging those two words.
Right. All right, we're at 9:31, so I'm going to finish off with this final question that I like. What if an introvert is uncomfortable with an extrovert sharing about themselves?
What if an introvert?
I really relate to that one. As an introvert, what if it makes me uncomfortable that the extrovert I'm dating is sharing
about themselves?
Yeah, so I'm not at a place where I'm ready to open up in the way that they are. It can definitely feel uncomfortable or off balance when they're so comfortable and open to talking.
Yeah.
So how do we move through that?
Don't date them. Pick
right,
somebody else. No, so on the introvert side, I think that you need to own it, that you're the introvert and that makes you uncomfortable. And you need to accept that they're the extrovert. They're going to be like this for their whole life, not only with you. That means in social circles, they're going to be talking and telling things way too soon. And you're going to be like, why'd you say that? That's nobody's business. Why are we talking about that? And you're going to maybe have those feelings throughout life. It's not just if they're doing that with you, they're doing that with everybody. That's who they are. So either you're going to learn to become comfortable with that and okay with that, because we're not changing who they are, or you're going to say, I'm not changing who I am. I like who I am. I don't want to be comfortable with that. That just is weird to me. And then you really shouldn't date somebody like that. So you've either got to come to a little bit of a balance and appreciate and value who they are, or say, bye-bye, nice to know you, but I like you, but I don't, because I can't live with that.
Awesome. Can I just add like a personal point as an introvert who dated for 10 years?
Talk to me.
All right. So one of my biggest pet peeves, and I'm just going to put it out there for any extrovert, and I'm sure it goes the other way as well, but please don't say to your date, oh, you're not an introvert. Like, I know who I am. Thank you very much. Just like I know my hair is brown and not red. And I think, Aleeza, you even told me this, but it's fine. I'll let it go. I'm an extroverted introvert. I like meeting people. I do fine one-on-one. I do fine in online crowds. If I own this stage, I'm great. Put me in a party where I don't really know anyone. I am the wallflower who will not budge from the wall and will hold her drink so tight the glass might break. And it's really, really frustrating when this is such an intimate part of who you are and such an intimate part of your dating experience, because I don't want to call it a barrier or anything like that, but it comes up in a relationship, and it's really like such a sucky feeling where you're sitting across from someone and they're just like, what? No, you're so chill, you're so comfortable. And they mean it as a compliment. But it's not, because I'm not saying it's a bad thing. And it just undermines me knowing who I am. And again, like if we
wait, there's another piece of it. It doesn't only undermine you knowing who you are, it undermines the other person, because it makes the introvert think, you don't get me.
Yeah.
You don't get me. And if you don't get that basic principle about me, what else are you missing? Like, how could you not get that about
me? Right.
Clearly I didn't get about you.
And it's fine. It's fine if people mistake your introvert extrovert type, especially because so many of us have both, in different mixes, and that's totally fine. But if I tell you, no, I'm an introvert, don't correct me and don't argue with me about it. That I always found very, that to me is like an immediate turn off. Like if you can't even, it's fine if you misread me, because that's fair. That's a fair, I'm not super shy and I'm totally comfortable on dates. But I'm not really quick to open up, and I'm a very private person. And so when someone says that to me, it's uncomfortable, and it's like, next. So just don't say that. All right. The last question we have is, anyway, we can have these webinars more than once a week. And I'm so flattered that you want to see me.
Wow!
I know. Like my introverted personality. No, I'm kidding. But Aleeza, I'm going to let you explain why these awesome free webinars are like amazing, but not going to happen more than once a week.
Okay, well, let's do this. We're going to stay on, because what we'll do is we'll go off the recording and we'll schmooze about. Well, okay, fine. Basically, in order to pull this all together, we've got to come up with a title, the content, the flyer. We've got to get it in your hands so that we know that we reached people, and then we have to plan it, and then we have to put it out there, and then you've got to register, and like it's about a week.
And also all the stuff that Aleeza doesn't know, like pulling all the records from all of the Zoom meetings, uploading it, making sure that everything matches up to make sure you're getting the right email to the right
replay.
Replay goes here, and the other replay link goes there, and it's yeah. It's what Aleeza's trying to say is not that we don't love this, but that it is a time-consuming process that is totally being offered for free because Aleeza's awesome at giving value. Well,
wait, I will say, if there are a group of you who say we want to do something and we want something once a week and we're willing to put in like a little bit of money to cover some of the costs of this, because I had to up my webinar thing and I have to pay Sarah and I have to do the market, like there's so many fees that we're doing. If you guys want to put something in and you want to get me a group of like-minded people that are like, that's your, everyday webinar, but like we want your private webinar and we'll pay something for it. If somebody wants to organize something like that, then message us and we will consider putting something together. We just need a little bit of funding to make it happen.
Awesome. All right.
Okay, so what we want to tell you is this is so much fun, and we love coming to see you every week live with these webinars. It's really awesome. We have found that we are able to reach hundreds of people every single week and connect with you. And a lot of the questions that are asked, they're generic, they're specific, but generic. They're not really what you're asking or the nuances or the details or whatever. We really love doing these webinars with you. But if you need any support and you're like, hey, I have a real question. Like, Aleeza, could you just answer this? First of all, I just want you to know there's no such thing as a quick dating question or just like a short little.
How many times have I done that to you?
It's like 5 minutes. It's just a quick question. So just so you know, there's no such thing as a quick dating question. This is what I do professionally and full-time, and I love it. And I have a whole team of coaches that I trained, and they work with me. And so if anybody is interested in coaching and you want to try it out with a one-time session, or you're like, forget about one time, I want a package, like give me a month, give me 3 months, give me like, I need more of you and I need to help dating and I need to get married and like enough of this process, I am done. If you are one of those people, find us at marriagemindedmentor.com. Sign up. You can do if you've never worked with us, you can do an intro session, which is like get to know the coach. Which coach do you like? Who do you want to work with? And if you've already worked with us and you're like, yeah, I probably should do this again. I need a boost. I need a refresh. Click, sign up, join us for a call. We would love to hop on and talk to you. I've got new crazy hours, which is like 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern and 9 to midnight. People are like, are you really talking at midnight? And I'm like, yes.
Wait, can you tell me what your son said?
What did he say? Which one? When?
The time that he woke up after you were like working all night?
Oh yeah. Wait, what did he say? He said, he woke up in the morning. Like, I'm like, get up, morning, come on, we got to get going, classes, school. And he woke up and he like looked at me over the top of his bunk bed and he was like, thank you, Ima, for working so hard and making money to help our family. Like with like crust in his eyes. And I was like, what? Like, this is the first thing you say? I was like, wait, what? Where did that come from? And he said, well, Appa was putting us to bed and I said I wanted to snuggle with Ima, and he said that you were working so hard for the family and thank you so much for working so hard and earning money to help us.
Aww.
He's 6.
So cute.
Love him. He's so adorable. He's just so sweet.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is what we do. This is what we love. And actually there's really exciting things coming up, like crazy exciting things that are going to be coming up in the next couple of months. So stay tuned. But not the good news. The news is that I don't want you to actually find out, because I don't want you to be connected with me anymore, because I want you to be engaged and moving on with your life. So I hope that you don't get to hear any of the fabulous things that we're doing, that are up and coming because you're moving on with your life and you don't need us. You're looking for like a marriage therapist, which we're not.
And I'm just going to like put in a little plug and say, as someone who's worked with Aleeza before I started working with her, you know what I'm saying? As a single, I worked with you both before I had anyone that I was dating to kind of make a dating plan. And then also once I was dating someone. So like Aleeza's really good at not working exclusively. Just, you know, it's not just if you're dating someone and you're not sure about something, you're struggling with something. Right. And it's not just if you're not dating and you need a plan. Like she's just, you know, for everyone.
from now until chuppah and, you know, whatever you need in between.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to wrap up and say goodbye. And then anybody who wants to stay on for the after party for like a few minutes, we'll just quickly like say hello. And you can, if you want to pop on audio or video or whatever we can do, we'll do.
All right,
how's
so
that sound? Pop off recording. Say goodbye.
Bye. Good night.
Bye to the recording.
All right, stop recording. I do.